All right, Nigel, thank you so much for hosting the Great Retention podcast here at the Jabian office, the headquarters here in Atlanta. Thank you so much for hosting us.
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate you and Cool Leaf underwriting this actual podcast. And I appreciate you, Jeff, for producing it.
Absolutely. So for the folks who are listening in today, let's start. Give us an overview of Jabian. Tell us a little bit about the firm. Just kind of give us an idea of overall the company to start.
Yeah. So Jabian's a local management consulting company. And we have offices in Atlanta, Chicago, Charlotte, and Dallas. And we serve mid-market and Fortune 500 clients with their people, process, technology, and strategy needs. I did note that it was a local consulting firm. Yeah. And so it may help the audience to understand what makes us different from a regular management consulting firm. The best way I know to describe this is a regular management consulting company has individuals or consultants who normally leave on a Sunday night, pack their bags, go to some client in a foreign city, and then come back either on a Thursday night, Friday night. And it's kind of a rinse and repeat. You got 48 hours to get your laundry done. And they go back on the road again. For Jabian, all of our clients and all of our employees live and work in their local community. And if we have clients during the COVID times that are not in our local community, then they're served virtually. We're a conscious capitalist organization, and I like to compare that using like stakeholders. And so in a regular consulting firm, the stakeholders are clearly the employee, the client, which normally is the logo on the building, because at the end of the day, after 6 weeks or 8 weeks on a project, you'll probably never see that human again when you go on to your next project. Yeah. And if they're publicly held, maybe a shareholder. For Jabian, the stakeholders are quite different. Again, the employee, but when you live and work 7 days of the week in your local community, then maybe it's your spouse if you're married, because you're going to see them every single day as a stakeholder. Your kids are a stakeholder. The client logo is still a stakeholder, but actually the human is a stakeholder, because when you're working with that client, you might see them in a grocery store. Your kids may play baseball together. So you build a much different kind of relationship. And maybe the final stakeholder here would be community. When you live 7 days a week in your community, then you can serve your community. So that's just a little bit of difference, who we are and how we may be different than the regular management consulting company.
I like it. And we have the backdrop, right? Yeah. The human. And so I know from past lives, burnout is real in consulting.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so the idea of being able to be around family, around friends, around community, that's very, very powerful, very meaningful. So it sounds like that's a big part of the culture. Tell us a little bit about the culture.
Yeah, it is really strong about our culture. Yeah. We're a purpose-driven company. And so we're out to help our clients and colleagues achieve their greatest accomplishments, make a meaningful difference, and enjoy the journey. It's pretty simple, but that's our why, our Simon Sinek why. Yeah. And so that's what we're focused on, and it's what we're focused on for the entire culture that we have. Our employees, we believe that we have a greenhouse for top performers. And so everyone in the company has a personal platform. It means, what are you famous for? And we're out to make people famous first internally and then externally in their local environments. Okay. And so today, our culture, we have our own 501c3 called Jabian Cares. And so 100% of our employees are engaged in their community. Maybe about 60 to 70% of those employees hold leadership positions, both on philanthropic and on business boards. And so that's the culture. People are here at Jabian for a career, not a job. So they're on a journey. Our whole mission is to help those folks as they're going through that journey, as they start into Jabian and wherever this journey may take them. Yeah. So it's helping an individual find their purpose and enjoy the journey. Yes. And what are they famous for? Yes. Right. But internally and externally. And it takes time sometimes for people to find their purpose, right? It's something that they have to click with. I can't create it for them. They have to discover that themselves. I saw there's all these stats, right? But it was something like 87% of Gen Z say they won't even think about working at an organization if they don't feel aligned to the purpose, the mission, the values. And so just hearing you speak about purpose-driven resonates. And I think that's the future.
But it sounds like that's kind of fundamental.
It is fundamental and it's real. I think a lot of large corporations, big names have all of a sudden become purpose-driven organizations.
Right.
And I think that's honorable. At least the people are moving towards that direction. But do they walk the walk, talk the talk? Is it really the culture? Because Gen Z is going to require it.
Yep.
So you can't really fake it.
Yep. So something I want to get your feedback, just kind of hear your experience, Nigel, is a lot of companies over the last couple of years have had to, they've invested a lot into their culture and then they went remote. And that, maybe some of those things, those all hands meeting, things that they've used to do, now all of a sudden they've hired someone and that person's never met anybody, right? And so, I know that with Jabian, you've had people, at clients, but that local community it sounds like is a big part of your culture. So talk to us a little bit about, with the shift to remote, how did that impact you? Are there things that you've learned along the way? Just any insights you can share on that?
Yeah, maybe we're going on a journey together in this kind of space. So let's look pre-COVID. I'll call that the old normal. You talked about all hands meetings. We would have all hands meetings. We'd do them every 2 months or so. They'd be live in Atlanta and we'd field a stream to the other offices. They were good meetings.
Yep.
And then COVID hit. And really quickly, we realized lots of things were changing on us. Like everyone else, big businesses were shutting down business, which really impacts the revenues for consulting companies.
Sure. Yeah.
And we knew that we had to have an all hands on meeting, even though we were all remote, pretty much now every week. You saw those same big companies laying off a lot of people.
So you went from every 2 months to every week. So the communication became much more frequent.
Had to be, and much more transparent. When people realized that clients weren't spending money on consultants, they were scared. When they looked around and saw their friends being laid off, they were scared. And so we took to the airwaves virtually to be extremely transparent. So, one of the things I'll compare a couple in contrast.
Sure.
We always start these meetings off with something called gratitude. It's Jabian gratitude. It's just a way of having people give gratitude to someone else in the firm, classic to our culture. And they would do it beforehand 5-6 times. During these weekly meetings, gratitude would last sometimes 10 minutes long.
Wow.
Today, we still do it. Now, our frequencies moved to 4 to 6 weeks, but they take well over 10 minutes in gratitude. And we've now said, hey, can we continue this? This is great, but in the chat, because we got to continue the meeting, which is interesting. The point about this is we've bonded more. Okay. And during COVID, we chose to lay no one off. And we said that to our employees at the time. We're not going to lay anyone off as best as we can. And we didn't. We realized we had the world's greatest consultants and that eventually this thing would rebound. And we wanted to be ready for our clients and our stakeholders to rebound. We actually kind of doubled down on the individuals. The individuals became more skilled, more trained, doubled down on the community. We did a ton of pro bono work during the time when clients couldn't use us. We just focused on the community and helped people in the community. And we doubled down on the firm. We produced more thought leadership during that period of time. That made us so much stronger. So some comparisons. Yeah. Here's just a hands-on meeting and how things changed. Today, and during COVID, we obviously had to shut down the office as everyone did. I think it was March 13th or whenever that Friday was, right? Yeah. But not for long, because we realized some employees, when there was homeschooling going on, actually needed an office to go work at.
Yep.
So we opened up the office. We obviously put COVID protocols together. And we always took doesn't matter what the government or the state said, we put employees first, employee safety first in the decisions we made. Mm-hmm. So we had people come into the office if they wanted to. It was optional, optionally open, people working remote. Today, same thing. Some people really have enjoyed working remote and we've helped support that. Some people really enjoy being in the office and they're in the office. And some are hybrid at client sites where clients kind of hybrid.
Right.
And so those are some of the changes. But at the end of the day, your question around culture and remoteness, I think there's the concept of connectivity really can impact a culture. And so even during the middle of COVID, we had folks who would go to the park, put on masks, social distance, and actually do meetings walking around, sometimes with their clients, right? Because they're all local. Yeah. Got people outside and got them connected. And today we see obviously people becoming much more comfortable with the situation of remoteness. And so connectivity comes in lots of ways. We do happy hours. Tomorrow night, we'll be doing the Atlanta Braves Pride game. Next month, we're doing a movie premiere and renting out a movie. All of these are ways of connecting employees together.
Yeah. So you shared some really good things there. One of the things that stuck out to me, Nigel, is, you made it clear that you're not wanting to lay people off during that time, which that can be very tough, right? But you were transparent about, it sounds like what was going on. And, so as a leader, when you go through these times of adversity, that gives you the opportunity to just walk the walk, right?
For sure.
And be there for your people.
For sure.
Right. And so that was one of the things I heard loud and clear,
and
which I was really impressed.
Our employees got to see that. They
Yeah.
got to see and experience that. And I actually think that's why the organization will look back at this point in time, just gelled even more so than pre-COVID. I didn't know that would be possible.
Yeah.
But there's between transparency, walking the walk, that just emanated throughout the entire
and it
culture.
sounds like a focus on connection.
Yes.
Continuing to find ways to bring people together.
And creating a place of safety.
Interesting.
If people remember the George Floyd murder, right? It saddened everyone, saddened the country, saddened our community, saddened our office and our employees. We'd always had a strong diversity, equity, inclusion program. We'd had lots of employee resource groups. But when that event happened, we just doubled down. We're like, our employees need more. We need open discussion. And we had these discussions and we had speakers come in. And I just remember an employee coming to me and saying, Nigel, I don't feel safe at home. And I don't feel safe in my neighborhood, but I feel safe at Jabian.
Wow.
And it was kind of like an eye-opener. In hindsight, it shouldn't have been an eye-opener, but it was an eye-opener. And I realized that safety is another thing that people need in their world. And today, our diversity and equity inclusion program, we have speakers on all topics, like every month, every 2 months, and it just keeps the dialogue going. So safety can be a really important factor, as well as connectivity.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And I think part of feeling safety is having connection with, and having that level of trust, with others, and knowing that you have leaders that are going to walk the walk when times get tough. So I think it's almost like it's all kind of related.
Exactly.
And it goes back to culture, right?
It does.
So that kind of leads us into this next question that I'd like to get your feedback on. And so big buzzword over the last, we'll call, year, is the Great Resignation, right? And we've got, maybe uncertainty with the economy, whatnot, but I still think that being intentional about really making sure you keep, your people, right? Good people that you've invested in is still top of mind, regardless of the economy. But what have you experienced? What's Jabian experienced when it comes to the Great Resignation? Are there things that you've maybe done to be proactive with your people? Any lessons learned that you can share on that?
I wouldn't, a couple of things. I wouldn't say that any company can escape the Great Resignation, right? We've clearly had people who have left our organization. In fact, that was true before this time, and it will be true going forward. It comes back to that journey. Okay. I once had a mentor who was a leader here in the Atlanta community, ran a large organization, and he said, don't be sad when people leave. Look out in your community. And when those people are presidents of large corporations or started their own successful business, be proud that you were part of the journey that got them to that. And so I look at that and I say to myself, that's, to me, when I think of the Great Resignation and the Great Retention, it's okay. Jabian might not be the right opportunity for someone's new part of their journey of what they want to go. Yeah. And in essence, our employees become alumni, right? When you become famous, when you become famous in your community, there's a lot of people that will come to you. When you're the world's best management consultant, there's a lot of clients that will come to you. And, if it's the right move for folks, I always will go up to someone when maybe they're leaving us and say, hey, how can I help you? Because they're not leaving my community. I'm going to see them. Yeah. And so these are some of the things we've seen with, quote, the Great Resignation. But I would tell you that there are also things that we've done since day one to create the culture that we have. For example, we do employee surveys. We do them once a year. Okay. They take about an hour to do. It's a long commitment.
Yeah.
We have, I don't know, 93, 94% of all employees will complete it, which is a
Wow,
pretty
that's good.
high mark. And we get really nice engagement scores. Most of the employee questions are open-ended, and they are basically say, what can we do better? We're actually seeking, no matter if you rate on a scale of 5, if you rated it a 4 or a 5, what can we do better? And what we take from that is 2 to 3 initiatives every single year, and we make them employee strategic initiatives for the following year normally, and start to figure out what we can do better. It's a continuous improvement organization. It's just one example of culture will change. It changes every day, but how can you make that culture better?
So every year, a handful of employee-centric initiatives.
Yes.
That's interesting. So, you're continuing to get feedback, and then you're responding with these specific initiatives.
Yes.
They're going to be priorities for the year.
Yes.
So that's a great way to think about it.
And we also interview people who are leaving the firm. Obviously, we do exit interviews, and we try to pull themes from that and roll them right into initiatives accordingly.
That's so. The other thing that you brought up, Nigel, was thinking of as an employee goes to a next step of their journey, they're alumni. They're part of the Jabian family.
They are.
Right. And so me as a leader, I'm thinking about, okay, I want to help this person, lift them up their neck, wherever they are in their career path. And I hope that wherever they go, they're going to be so successful, and they're part of our alumni.
Exactly.
That is such a cool way to think about it.
We have alumni events.
Interesting.
Right? Where it's a catch up.
Yeah.
Maybe I haven't seen you in a while. And it's an opportunity to catch up. As I said before, some alumni are now clients.
Yep.
And I think that's the greatest praise. Right? They're out in the community, and they are saying, this is the organization we should use. I know how good they are.
Yeah. That's so, I love that. So, people have timing, different things a part of their journey, but they're still part of the Jabian alumni.
Exactly.
I love it. So, Nigel, thank you so much. Final question as we wrap up here, just, for the leaders that are listening in, and they want to make a positive impact with their people. They want to obviously retain good people. Any additional kind of practical pieces of advice or anything that you might leave folks with as we wrap up here today?
Yeah, I would say, one of our guiding principles in the company is a marathon, not a sprint. For great retention, it's a marathon. Organizations aren't overnight going to be able to create culture. It's okay if you don't have a great culture and you want to change. I applaud you to wanting to change, but it's not going to change overnight. And so I'd encourage leaders to think about that culture from day one, and how can they continuously improve that particular culture. We talked about surveys, employee surveys. We talked about connectivity. These are constant things. And so I would tell folks, continue that marathon mindset. The classic thing we're seeing in the marketplace right now, those companies that laid off all of those people can't get people right now, right? Lowest unemployment in years. And so what are folks doing now? They're throwing very large salaries at individuals. Yep. And it can't be maintained for long. For example, we do compensation studies, and we make sure that our employees are fairly compensated and have great benefits. But that's not going to solve it. People stay for culture and fair compensation.
Right.
I'd be willing to bet some of those companies that are throwing out big money now will be the first ones to lay off those people if we get into a recession. Right. So the message for fellow CEOs and executives out there is, it's a marathon. Try not to change something on a dime. Think about it as a long journey that you're taking your company on, and so forth.
Makes sense. Nigel, thank you again. Really appreciate you sitting down and just sharing your lessons learned with us on the great retention.
Well, thanks, John, and thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you guys being here today.